to GSMA. Welcome to the GSMA Community Forum. My name is Terence Wong, heading the APAC 5G industry community. Today is another virtual workshop. This time we are working together with my colleague, Joe Gilbert from Europe. We have a joint community forum about advanced manufacturing with private network across APAC and Europe. Today's agenda is quite comprehensive. We have a good lineup of speakers from Europe and APAC with Airbus, AWS, my colleague from GSMA, and of course, we also have Hyperlab, Huawei, MCMC, Malaysian government representative, and Telefonica, and also Robert Fans from UK. So the agenda is quite tight. We have 1.5 hour content. Just remind, this section actually is a virtual workshop. If you have any questions about to the speaker, you can put the question in the Q&A boxes. Please don't put it into the chat box. Put it into the Q&A boxes. Our speaker, after their presentation, they will have to respond the answer. Okay. And also this section will have simultaneous Mandarin interpretation. So if you want to listen to Mandarin, you can find the interpretation button in the Zoom menu. You can select Mandarin channel. If you listen to English, just stay in this channel. That's perfect. So let's start. So today, for myself, we come from GSMA. Of course, if you don't know about GSMA, we are a global industry association, represent more than 700 mobile operators and over 1,000 members across 200 markets and countries over the world. So every year we produce very large industrial leading conference, MWC at Barcelona, Shanghai, Las Vegas. Myself and Joe are more focusing on driving the industry program such as 5G, manufacturing or different industry to adopt 5G. We also have an advocacy team, work very closely with government for favorable open competition policy that benefits for the industry development. So about the 5G commercialization, I think everyone are aware 5G has been rolled out for some years, since 2019 in Korea. So as of today, there are over 200 mobile operators rolled out in more than 80 markets around the world. And already accumulate to more than 1 billion 5G users. By the end of the year, will reach to 1.5 billion. So in APAC, there will have a 130 billion economy value contributed by 5G. So if you are interested, you can download our recently GSMA Mobile Economy APAC report. So myself in the region, I drive the industry government to understand more about 5G in order to support them for digital transformation using 5G as one of the key enabler, and of course other IoT, AI, metaverse technology on top. So we set up different kind of industry interest group that support industry to understand 5G. We also work very closely with our member, including operator, government department agency, and also technology leader to work on this area to support industry for understanding and adopting 5G. So this section is more focusing on manufacturing. So you will hear some of our experts in the community from APAC and Europe side to share more detail in the coming section. So this community actually already accumulate more than 1,000 members in the region. So if you are interested in our community, please join us. If you want to connect to any local market member, so of course, welcome to let me know and connect me. We did many workshops before in the past 2 years, more than 20 workshops we have done. And we also write a lot of good case study to talk about how 5G being adopted in seaport, airport, manufacturing, hospital, smart city, etc. So these all resources are available online. Please go to our website to download. Moving forward, after this manufacturing section, we also have a series of activity in different market, in different sector. coming forward. So again, if you're interested, welcome to join our community activity, meet virtually and physically. Okay, so let me pass to my colleague Joe, who talk about a little bit about the digital industry community managed by her. Joe.
Sorry, unmute. Hi, Terence. Great to be here, and thanks for doing the intros. It's really excellent for us to have this opportunity again to do a joint forum together, which we did last year, and we know it was people are interested to hear what the two audiences have got to say. So thanks for the invitation. So GSMA Digital Industries is all about connecting the benefits of mobile technologies for the industrial sector. So we focus very specifically on the manufacturing and industrial area through collaboration, insights, forums and events. So if we go to the next slide, please, Terence, this just gives an overview of our objectives. So as I've mentioned, we bring together mobile network operators, the industrial enterprises and the broader ecosystem. And we have these kind of 5 pillars that we're focused on. So we're interested in really understanding the business and the operational needs of the industrial value chain, to identify innovation and collaboration opportunities with our members, to tackle the barriers to digital transformation in this sector, to share key knowledge and insights and innovation ideas with our stakeholders. And then finally, we're really around helping to drive those new relationships within the wider ecosystem to achieve that global success. So if we go to the next and my last slide, because I'm really keen to get speaking to the, I think my penultimate slide, actually, thanks. This actually just gives you an idea of some of the organisations that have been involved over the last year or so. To give you a bit of a sense of the size of it, we have around 67 organisations that have joined us through our 4 quarterly forum meetings that last about 90 minutes online, but we do get involved in other activities as well, which I will come back to a little bit later in this session when I introduce a private networks paper that we've worked on that we're really happy to share with everybody. So actually my last slide, Terence, my next slide, this is just a quick link to finding out a little bit more. So if you follow the QR code, you'll find our webpage. We are interested to welcome all organisations that have a specific involvement in either.
Joe, are you still here? Hello? Yeah, I think we probably lose Joe, right? Lost Joe. So it doesn't matter. It's the final slide. I think it's talking about the digital industry community. I will put the link in the chat box and you can access the link to join the community. So now let's move to the first keynote speaker. Let me introduce Robert Fangs, the Managing Director of WM5G. Today's topic is about 5G private network from trial to adaptation, a perspective from UK's industrial heartland. Welcome, Robert. You can turn on your camera and sharing your slide, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Terence and Joe and everyone. So let me just share my screen quickly. So I'm delighted to join you all here today to share a perspective from part of the UK in terms of our industrial IoT and 5G private network journey. So I'm hoping to cover 3 things today. Firstly, to give you some brief context about the advanced manufacturing sector in the part of the UK that we operate and the journey we've been on in terms of trials. Secondly, I'd like to talk about some of the barriers and opportunities that we see to adoption. And thirdly, and I guess most importantly, what we're working on to address those barriers and accelerate adoptions and the benefits of private 5G, and to really throw open the invitation if anyone's interested in following up either on this call or subsequently. I'd really welcome the opportunity to do that. So let me just say a quick word firstly about the company I represent. So the company I lead is called WM5G. We're a small organization founded 5 years ago as the UK's largest 5G testbed. We operate today as effectively an independent consultant, acting as a trusted advisor to manufacturers and other organizations, if you like, on the demand side of the marketplace, and also convening technology and telecoms companies on the supply side to accelerate the delivery of benefits into the advanced manufacturing sector. So let me start by just telling you a little bit about the West Midlands, because I'm conscious it may be a part of the UK that some of you aren't familiar with. So the West Midlands is located bang in the centre of the UK. It's home to the UK's second largest city, Birmingham, outside of London, which is obviously the largest, the capital, has a population of about 3 million people and generates about 70 billion sterling in GDP per year. The West Midlands is the heart of the Industrial Revolution. If you go back, 150 or so years, a lot of the manufacturing base that was first established in the UK was established in the West Midlands, and that proud tradition continues today. So advanced manufacturing accounts for about 14% of the region's output, almost 300,000 jobs, and it's particularly centred around transport equipment. So we have some very large manufacturers of things like automotive vehicles, companies like Jaguar Land Rover Group, for example, and also companies involved in aerospace manufacturing, and also organizations involved in trains and trams. Metal products, which are obviously a key part of the supply chain for some of that, and also machinery equipment. So manufacturing, very big part of the economy, and a very big part of the UK's manufacturing base. So over the last 5 years, ourselves and others in the region have been very focused on how we can prove the opportunity for accelerated Industry 4.0 and private 5G adoption. This started with some pioneering work led by Worcester Bosch. Obviously, Bosch Group being one of the largest manufacturing groups, Worcester Bosch being one of the largest makers of boilers and heaters, combined with our fellow 5G testbed, Worcestershire 5G, testing around predictive maintenance and remote servicing. So using sensors on machines to identify vibrations and use that to identify ahead of time when problems are potentially emerging and components needed replacing, to avoid having to take machines out of the production line during peak times, and to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of servicing by enabling lower skilled technicians to carry out servicing guided by experts off-site. Since then, we've continued that work, extending in, well, more than 3 areas, but 3 of the areas we've extended in. So firstly, we've done a lot of work around asset tracking, particularly focused on the aerospace sector. So there are various high quality instruments, things like gauges and other instruments that are vital to manufacturers in that sector, locating exactly where they are and making sure they haven't been dropped or otherwise damaged, which would affect the calibration, is fundamentally important, and an area where IoT sensors can make a big difference. A 4th area we've been focused on is quality assurance. So using things like 3D cameras and other types of technology to check that parts coming through the production line have been manufactured correctly with absolute precision, is vital both for avoiding rework, but also ensuring that problems that occur further down the supply chain are quickly identified and attributed to the relevant party. And finally, something called machine servitization, which is all about how manufacturers can use some of their machinery to generate additional income during times when they're not potentially using those assets. So lots of 5G trials and lots of exciting benefits off the back of it in terms of improving productivity, in terms of improving health and safety, and also in terms of cost savings and other types of efficiencies. Those trials and other work has led to analysts rightly identifying a huge opportunity for the West Midlands, other parts of the UK, and as Terence mentioned, globally, for the widespread accelerated adoption of Industry 4 technologies, including 5G. So just in the part of the UK we operate in, potential uplift over the next just under 10 years of about 4% of GDP. So quite a significant uplift. It's worth me saying that I think there are sort of three sets of features that make private 5G attractive as a technology for manufacturers. And I'm going to talk a bit about the barriers just to be balanced on this in the next few minutes. But let me say a few words quickly about the three key features. So the first is probably an obvious one, but it's a really important one, which is about the indoor range. So Wi-Fi is widely deployed, Wi-Fi and WAN, of course, across the advanced manufacturing sectors. But as you'll be aware, many of the manufacturing facilities have a lot of metal objects and therefore effectively act in lots of locations as Faraday cages, blocking signals often from unlicensed spectrum and sometimes Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi often works in a lot of locations, but not perfectly across many factory floors. And what we therefore see are critical dead zones that, unless you can use a technology like 5G that uses licensed spectrum, are sometimes very hard to reach unless you connect the operational technology using Ethernet cables. And the problem that we find with connecting with Ethernet cables is that manufacturers are often frequently reconfiguring their plants to make different types of products and services. And therefore, if they have to rewire their plants due to Ethernet cables, as well as other issues, it creates significant inefficiencies and delays in having that flexibility to recondition their factory floor, as well as some other challenges associated with that. So range is an important benefit. Security is another important benefit. So being able to have a private network, completely on premises, completely resilient, avoiding data going outside of the organization is something that many of the manufacturers we engage with really value. And then finally, and I guess building on some of the more advanced features of 5G, having the ability to customize your private network to assign different levels of quality of service or different levels of latency, different levels of upload, download, all of those different features is also very attractive to manufacturers who, depending on what types of sensors they're using for what types of purposes, is something that they definitely want to do in many instances. But despite those drivers and despite the exciting outcomes of the trials, I think it would be wrong for me to say that adoption is a slam dunk and it's accelerating at the pace that any of us would like. So we have to face into reality, and the reality is that I think across many parts of the world, the manufacturing industry is facing a number of macroeconomic challenges right now. Whether it's the shortening of supply chains, some of the drops in demand due to situations in the global economy or some of the geopolitical risks, it is a challenging time. And there are lots of manufacturers who are very short-term focused on survival at the moment. And obviously things like the increase in energy prices since the Ukraine war has hit manufacturers particularly hard because they are intensive users of energy by nature of their businesses. So there's some kind of macroeconomic challenges around return on investment and other things that of course are playing a role in terms of manufacturers' ability to invest over a long period of time in new technologies. On top of that, there are also some further opportunities to improve private 5G and some of the IoT use cases that go around it to accelerate liftoff. So the typical barriers that we see in moving from trials into full adoption are around about half a dozen key areas. Firstly, there's some challenges around awareness in the sector of what private 5G is, what it can do, and how it integrates with other things that manufacturers are already using. But secondly, and I think more fundamentally, I think that there's a big difference for manufacturers and any business going from running trials to running very precise cases for large investments and other things. And so one of the challenges that we often experience is that organizations struggle to get a hold of exact benefit metrics around the uplift, details on design. And I think there's also an opportunity to position the propositions that need to be in place around private 5G in a bit more of an end-to-end way. Typically, we don't see that there's a single use case that justifies the investment. It's normally a combination of a number of use cases, and again, being a bit clearer around what those use cases are, depending on the manufacturer and their needs, is really important for driving take-up. There's a third challenge around the business model and the ROI. So sometimes the payback can be quite long, and given some of the macro challenges I was highlighting earlier, that can be a challenge for some manufacturers, particularly when you go down the supply chain from some of the larger organizations into some of the more medium-sized ones. There is some additional complexity for manufacturers around private 5G in terms of channels and sourcing. So many of them are familiar with sourcing things like Wi-Fi and WAN, but obviously the telecom side is slightly different. And there is also some complexity around delivery as well as a result. And finally, I guess it would be remiss of me not to point out the obvious fact that technology is the easy bit. The hard bit is changing business processes and also the operating model in terms of skills that exist. So normally 5G deployments and other Industry 4.0 initiatives need to be part of much wider change programs at these organizations, and having the support for that in place is really critical. So there's a number of challenges that exist, but I think we're at an exciting point in terms of the conditions being there to address these challenges. And therefore, my penultimate slide is really to talk briefly about what we're doing in the West Midlands, and hopefully a model that will deliver benefits far beyond. So to address these kind of adoption barriers in moving from trials into mass market adoption of private 5G, we are about to launch in the next 6 or so months 2 sets of initiatives. Firstly, we're collaborating with a large manufacturer, Jaguar Land Rover Group, to launch an adoption hub. And essentially what that will be is it will be a live facility at their plant, at one of their factories, where we will be building on the 5G trials they've done, the private 5G trials they've done, to install a fully working solution, collaborating with operators and others to address all of the use cases that they need, and to demonstrate how that solution can work in a live environment as opposed to in a trial, addressing some of the previous barriers. So we hope that will create a demonstrator and confidence and inspire other manufacturers in their supply chain and beyond to adopt the technology, as well as to help some of the telecoms and technology companies involved in those use cases to industrialize some of their products and services. And then we will also be launching our advanced manufacturing adoption program, where we will be providing in-depth business support to other manufacturers, starting in the West Midlands and other telecoms and technology companies, so that they too can advance and accelerate their journey and towards adopting this technology. And one of the things that we're also focusing on here is working extensively with manufacturers who are developing the operational technology that needs to have the 5G SA chipsets built into it. So we're going to be working with companies that make things like automated guided vehicles, robotic arms, DC tooling, a whole range of devices and machinery that goes into these manufacturing plants. Because if we can get more of those companies to put 5G SA chipsets into their, to integrate them into the manufacturing machines they buy, it makes adoption a lot easier for manufacturers, because it's just an option they can tick as they order new machinery, as opposed to something they need to kind of bootstrap in themselves through separate modems or Ethernet cables. So we're really excited about the opportunity to accelerate adoption of private 5G. We see it as a critical part of how we're going to grow the manufacturing sector in the West Midlands and beyond. And we see it as a large commercial opportunity for telecoms companies and technology companies. But as I say, the challenge at the moment is moving beyond trials in a challenging global economy. And we think this is one approach that can help address some of the adoption barriers. So to finish off, delighted to join you today. As I've said, the region I work in is at the heart of the industrial heartland in the UK. We've been proud to lead a number of 5G trials that have proven the opportunity in manufacturing, But now, as I say, really the opportunity is to move beyond those and accelerate adoption through these hubs and programs. So please do reach out to me if you're interested in finding out more or collaborating. Thank you very much, Terence. Back to you.
Thanks, Robert. I think it's very promising to see what you have done to support the industry in your side. I think definitely there are a lot of opportunity to exchange information, especially the ecosystem that could support each other in Europe and in APAC. So let's discuss after the section. And meanwhile, there are 6 questions coming to you. Please go to the Q&A boxes to help to answer. Thank you very much. So now let me invite the next speaker, which is coming from APAC side, which is, okay, let me share you. Okay, yes, and Jianshu Tao, the founder of Hyperlab, he's going to present about industrial metaverse transforming manufacturing in the 5G era. Hyperlab, actually, they did a lot of metaverse application, not only on manufacturing, but healthcare and also different sectors. So I let him to give you a presentation. And you can share your slide, open your mic and camera. Thank you. Over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Terence. Let me just share my slide now. Okay. Is it loading?
Yes, loading.
Right. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ender.
You can show now.
Hi. Yes. Yes. So, okay. Yeah, afternoon, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Ender. I'm the founder of Hyperlab and also the CEO. So today I'd like to share more about the concept of industry metaverse. Actually, in another term, is also called spatial digital twin. We have been working on this domain for the past few years, and I'd like to share with you our journey and also why do we feel 5G is the potential accelerators of this whole adoption. Hyperlab as a Singapore startup, we actually started back to 2014, almost 10 years. Today, we have operating in 20 countries, mainly look at the general emerging technologies, and also more specifically, we provide AI-powered spatial digital twin for next generations of enterprise interoperabilities. And so our solution has been well adopted by the manufacturing, logistics, supply chain, as well as healthcare sectors. With a lot of customers in the region, they are onboarding to build their digital twin with our software. So, yeah, one of the key challenges I've been seeing happens in the industry over the past decade is always about the IT systems is lack of interoperabilities because each of the systems has been isolated, and the data protocols, the general infra, the format, and also the integration process is always a gap. I think for the end user, because there are different level stakeholders that like to understand the operation nature of the facility, and then they would have the demand of having a centralized system that's able to consolidate, integrate, and eventually streamline the data, and eventually help them have a better decision making. And then that's why the concept of digital twin has bring to the market and has been driving adoption over the past few years by different level of stakeholders. I think for us, we are more looking at making digital twin a lot more accessible, a lot more easier to integrate, so as it can fit more users as we grow this adoption. When the user look at generally the concept of digital twin, there are different levels of digital twin they are adopting. The basic level is called descriptive, which user will be creating a general representative of the facility just using a 3D software. It's like 3D Max or Maya, so you are able to use it to create a 3D model. But as we move on, we are looking at more informative digital twin, which will connect the 3D with your data. Usually you come to the IoT integration. So if your matter plant have a lot of sensors, temperature sensor, humidity, so even like camera sensors, yes, those are IoT devices you're able to integrate, and you use the digital twin as a general visualization analysis platform to understand the operation efficiency. As we move on, once the digital twin has been collecting more data, the next step usually will go into a prediction. When you go to a prediction digital twin, you will be getting all this data run through a machine learning model to understand the behavior and the trends of your operation. Then you're able to use all these algorithms to how to improve the operation. But eventually, when you have a ready to build model, the model is really a solid, robust, and it has represented operation and can provide improvement. You are able to deploy the model eventually to do a live improvement of digital twin. And so most of the user today's industry, I can say 90% of them they are at the stage of level 2, level 1, because they are lacking of sufficient bandwidth or sufficient computing powers to drive the whole system into level 3 and level 4, because they do requires a very intense level of data collection, data processing, computing, and also the streaming back to the overall operation system. Of course, also the lacking of the protocols, lacking of the bandwidth or latency support, which also cause the overall system doesn't run as we expected. So for us, we have been providing our software to the industry users, which is called Spatialwork. It's a digital twin creator software that users able to use it to do a 3D creation by doing the layout editing. And they're also able to use the inbuilt low coding interface to connect the IoT sensor data into the interface, digital twin software immediately, as well as they're able to use the different OS like mobile device or large screen projection to view the digital twin at different type of user. Like some of them can view the whole digital twin remotely or even on the mobile phone. Yeah, all these basic features allow you to create a digital by themselves and easily navigate and easily look at the analysis purpose. Yeah, so we have done a few digital twin in the past project. For example, for manufacturing, we work with HP Indigo plant in Singapore, which deploy a digital twin system for them to monitor the overall the wastage and the energy efficiency as well. And so for this project in the past, the team used to do a manual collection of the data. The collection cycle might be as long as weekly or monthly. But as digital twin get into place, we have able to do a live monitoring and real-time report alert to understand the behavior of every single machine. Of course, we are able to also further implement and integrate more sensors to look at improvement of the consumption and also the wastage as well. Another sector, it is offshore marine, which actually deploy one of the very first 5G digital project in Singapore with Keppel offshore. And so in this project, we use Spatialwork to capture overall live building of crane data. The crane data is currently mainly look at the loading of the containers on the port. And so the whole Spatialwork will be used to connect to the backend database and stream the whole data to the user's mixed reality device, which is HoloLens device. And so we actually set a whole 5G network there, including the antennas, including the local networks, and also including pairing the HoloLens device with the tenant that connect to the 5G network. So we're able to minimize the whole data connection latency to about 20 to 30 milliseconds. So the user is able to move around in a large scale of environment. They're able to read the data of the machine anywhere they want. They just need to use the device to look at the machine. Yeah, so this is bring the whole data immediately to the user's vision system, which is quite effective. But as we move on, we realize that spatial digital will need to go beyond just level 2 level for the inform team. If you should go a lot more in depth and a lot more intelligent. So there's a lot of features that we are required better support network. Yeah, for example, one of the key trends that as the whole world is moving to AI, digital twin is also moving to AI driven. So we have been developing a few features. One is the large language interface. You can use this large language model as a user's interface. So user is able to ask data directly into the digital twin system. So this is actually the live demo that we have been running. That user can actually just use this chat box to ask the data which has been connected with the digital twin. Yeah, so these kinds of behaviors requires instant data connections, instant processing. So, and secondly, for machine vision, you're able to use the live camera feed as your source to do a lot of dynamic processing, including a counting of the objects, or the 3D scanning of the environment, or a notification of the safety requirement. For example, in manufacturing plan, you can look at maybe a security of the robotic arms, whether you maybe potentially block humans walking path as well. All this can be done by using machine vision to connect in live mode. And lastly, we talk about the intelligence connector that you're able to use this spatial digital twin to create a whole replica and the operation process, which user can use it for simulation and understanding the efficiency and understanding the ROI of the investment. Yeah. So for each of these AI-powered solution, usually the dedicated network is required to fully release potential. As for example, just talk about the computer vision. Usually you need to look at the basic level of HD video streaming. For each channel, it probably will cost you about 5 Mbps. Then secondly, we look at the 3D scanning. You want to capture the live 3D point of data, which you look at the minimally 30 Mbps level of data streaming to end-to-end. Lastly, we have live video analysis. Of course, the bandwidth is lower, but generally the latency also requires much lower as well. The next one, we look at the multi-sensory AI. This trend is also coming because of the overall drive of Meta and also the NVIDIA also large language model. So we start to understand that, generally speaking, if you look at the end environment, your vision, your audio, and also the backend data can be interconnected. So you are able to use computer vision to recognize an object, the link to an audio input, then eventually bring that to a text input to call the data to get a response to the end user. So for multi-sensory AI, the interconnectivity of different AI models is very crucial to make the whole process smooth. So if you ask something from your client device, you can't expect this whole audio feed take a few seconds to go to another database, then you will trigger another agent to work, which the whole cycle might take maybe a few seconds or even to a minute, which is not acceptable for this type of integration. But since the expectation is there, we believe that the network support is always quite essential. A last one is about the general interaction solution, because for the end user, when you look at the digital twin, how the user will receive the digital twin on the end device. One option is they would like to always receive digital twin maybe on the portable device. It can be a laptop, it can be a mobile device. Usually those devices don't have a dedicated GPU, you have to rely on remote rendering. This is a general approach we look at the cloud gaming industry. So you do need to do a rendering from your central computing unit, which you can push the rendering video feed to the end device, which I look at a dedicated rendering encoders, recorders, video streaming network, which minimum is 10 Mbps per device. And of course, there are more advanced things that you can do with the general digital twin. You're able to use it to do a virtual commissioning, means you are able to bring the whole system into the digital twin system. Then you are able to run simulation, eventually use it to count the investment record, and also you can look at the overall time taken of the whole simulation as well. So all these things requires a lot more computing. Then lastly, we call the interoperability. Nowadays, we do see that a lot more robotic systems are being deployed, and the robot system, they're currently being used like transporting of the materials, maybe a very simple level of navigating for inspection, and also they might be really used for collaboration with human. For robot system, there are a series of framework has been built. One of the examples is OpenRMF. So this is more like a managed fleet of the robot behaviors. We have been working on this RMF for a few projects as well. I think for us, we definitely recognize that for RMF, there are a lot of features that requires a very dedicated secure network. For example, traffic negotiation, traffic configuration. Imagine they have maybe 20 to 30 AMR running in management plan, that all these AMR have to navigate with each other, have to really try to avoid conflicting with each other. So if you have a dedicated network to handle all these agent we call the traffic negotiation node, then you're able to allow the AMR to move much faster because response time is much slower. There's all these we call the massive robotic automation system interconnectivities. It is quite crucial for a good network to handle. So to all these empowered features that can make the whole spatial digital twin a lot more scalable and useful, we believe that we have to really look at high level of architecture to understand what the deployment requirement we need. For example, on the left side, it is a standard NVIDIA Omniverse architecture that you can see the client side, they will be mainly look at the editing and going through different level of service to pass all these editing files to the end device. End device can be workstation, can be a VR device, can even be a mobile device as well. So this had to go through a few layers of service, including the creator, including the render streaming service. So usually for this type of integration architectures, you are looking at high bandwidth network. And another part is mainly for general informal digital twin. On the client side, when the whole facility has been putting in action, and of course you have a different data coming from facility, can be video data, can also be IoT sensor data, can also be ERP data. So all this data go through a backend data warehouse. Then you go to different type of ETL process. then you visualize that in front end to run through some prediction. Then you are looking at more like a low latency network because you need to really connect to massive IoT, make sure that the data really is instant. Yeah, all these different type of a digital twin system do require a heavy computing resource, high bandwidth, and low latencies. Unlikely any of these can really run on the light network or can run on the light mobile device. Then how? And so one of the options look at a network in 5G network. So one of the deployment option is to consider having a MEC as one resource group. So you're able to pass all these materials within the MEC network. Then you can run the server and use this MEC to communicate with 5G network. Then eventually you can push all this rendering feed, to the end device, to the in-facilities 5G radio units, to the device which have a 5G SIM card. So this is one of the setup we've done with the client, which is quite successful. And of course, we do see that as we growing the applications, as more features, AI features pump into a digital twin, the computing part will be getting a lot more crucial, and scalability really rely on this kind of centralized network process. Yeah, so I believe that 5G definitely will be a definite enablers to accelerate the efficiency of the delivering the high quality digital twin for the end customer. Yeah, so that's the main part of our sharing. Yeah, so feel free to reach us if you have any interest to explore spatial digital twin, AI powered solutions, and how 5G can help it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. I think it's a very informative section. You demonstrate really how Metaverse can utilize the 5G bandwidth and low latency use case across sector, and also the new feature is just very fantastic. We are looking forward because 5G is also moving towards 5G Advanced to support more Metaverse use cases for more uplink bandwidth and allowing more concurrent devices to run in a very crowded area. So which is good. Great to have you in the region and then sharing your cases. Thank you very much. So now let me introduce the next speaker. I just remind, I already shared all the speaker profile in the chat box. If you want to connect them, you can connect them in LinkedIn. And then, Andrew, there's some question to you in the Q&A boxes. Please also help to respond. Okay, so now, yeah, it's my honor to invite my friends, Marilla Jurava, the APJ Business Development Lead, Industrial IoT, Robotic, and Digital Twins from AWS. She's going to talk about how 5G driven cloud and computer vision transforming manufacturing. Over to you, Marilla.
Thank you very much, Terence. And let me take over and share my screen.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes. Please maximize.
Can you see my screen? Okay.
Yes. Please maximize it in the presentation mode.
Yeah, just a moment. So is it better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so thank you for the invitation, Terence, and thank you, GSMA. Welcome, everybody. Hello, Mirela Juravle. I'm based in Singapore, and I look after business development for industrial IoT and digital twins across Asia for Amazon Web Services. Today, I'm going to cover how 5G-driven cloud and computer vision are transforming manufacturing. And I'm going to talk to you about two things mainly. How AWS is expanding cloud capabilities towards edge to help customers run their low latency applications. And secondly, I'm going to share with you a few case studies, customer stories around this topic. So as I mentioned, in my day-to-day life, I'm working with industrial customers in manufacturing and energy to realize their goals, their digital transformation goals, leveraging cloud, IoT, digital twins, and help them adopt 5G technologies as well. And I'm going to, Okay, next. And innovation and invention is at the core at everything that AWS does. As a result, I'm starting with a quote from Jeff Bezos, which says that inventions comes in many forms and at many scales. But the more radical and transformative inventions are often those that empower others to unleash their creativity. And this is very important because 5G and IoT and digital twin technology that we saw previously are such technologies that enable our customers and partners to unleash their creativity. Okay, so 5G marks a pivotal moment in the technology evolution. It accelerates the explosion of data. It accelerates the deployment of Internet of Things technology. It helps customers build new business models and in the same time achieve operational efficiency. And it leads to the creation of a rich digital ecosystem, creation of new ecosystem or augment the existing ecosystem in place, which were created by 4G technologies. All these are set to redefine the way we live, the way we work, and we interact with the world, but also with our customers and our partners. Gartner estimates that 75% of enterprise-generated data will be created and processed outside of traditional data centers by 2025. And other industry analysts, such as Market, estimates 5G will enable more than 12 trillion of global economic output. These are analyst data, and we know that sometimes these can be very bullish, but what is clear, and we observe on working day-to-day with customers and partners, is that edge computing is critical for processing data closer to where it's generated in real time with ultra-low latency. And in this case, around 5G networks being private or being public. Well, we heard a lot about the extraordinary capabilities of 5G, and these are driving edge computing use cases. And to give some example, the high bandwidth use cases and the network slicing are driving use cases around media, video, content, catching at the edge, reliable ultra-low latency communications are driving new applications such as autonomous driving, autonomous robotics management, new experiences with AR, VR. And then the scale of the connectivity, the connection density, the ability to connect millions of devices over 5G networks drive the need to process some of this data and derive insights at the edge. So within this context, when we talk to partners and customers that leverage cloud today to build and run their application, what we hear is that the customers want the same experience from edge to cloud, from on-premise to the edge and to the cloud. Customers, they look at 5G, they want to realize the promise and the potential of 5G, but in the same time, they look how exactly it can work, how they can leverage, and in the same time maintain a consistent experience when they use cloud capabilities. They want the same reliable, secure, and high-performance infrastructure. They want the same operational consistency. They want the same services, to have this access to the same services, being compute storage databases or more advanced services such AI, ML, or IoT and APIs. Same tools for automation deployments and security controls, as well as they want to leverage the same pace of innovation. So looking at this requirement and understanding the business potential that 5G can unlock in terms of developing new range of applications. AWS has looked at the current way that 5G network work and operate. And if we look from AWS regions, customer, they want the same experience to on-premise, metro center, 5G networks, as well as at the edge by connecting IoT devices or rugged edge devices. And for ultra-low latency and local data processing is providing a range of services which can meet the needs of the customer to access cloud capabilities where they need it. From outpost to on-premise, AWS local zones at the metro zones, AWS Wavelink at the edge of the 5G networks, or AWS IoT and AWS Snowball at the edge. IoT for IoT devices and Snowball for edge. And now I would like to zoom a little bit about AWS Wavelink. And this is the service that was developed 2 years ago in collaboration with Verizon and launched initially in the US, but then expanded globally through partnerships with various telco groups such as Vodafone in Europe and here in Asia, KDDI in Japan and SK in Korea. So this is a service that is installed actually in at the edge of the 5G network, and it contains capabilities of compute, storage, database, even AI, ML, which allows customers to realize their ultra low latency use case. The pain point that it addresses is to avoid any latency that the customer experienced in the past when connected to their to internet and to their cloud application. The connection had to go from the device to the telco network to the metro zone to the aggregation zones and then to the internet. By placing AWS Wavelink at the edge of the 5G network in the operator data centers, all this latency is reduced. As a result, with AWS Wavelink, customers, they can run latency-sensitive applications at the edge using AWS infrastructure and service. And some of these low latency applications actually can be found across a large range of verticals. In Smart Factory, we have seen quality inspection at the edge. In autonomous driving, we have seen the capability to avoid any unexpected or any last-minute abnormal behavior on the street. Or when it comes to healthcare, the ability to immediately detect different kind of behaviors. And actually, we have a very interesting use case here in the US with Verizon, with a company that uses 5G and AWS Wavelink for colonoscopy to immediate detection of polyp presence. Good. So this is how AWS helps customers to bring cloud to the edge of the 5G networks. And now a few customer examples. And I'm going to start with a very recent one. As you notice, it's a press release done end of August, whereby AWS is partnering with Ericsson to build a 5G machine vision system for a Hitachi car factory, actually more precise EV in the US. This use case combines the Ericsson private 5G capabilities with AWS Snowball capabilities and AI ML computer vision for quality systems. It can detect defects up to a millisecond level, and it can process information coming from 24 lines in the same time. So quite impressive. This is currently a trial with the intention to be expanded. And this particular use case refers to a private network. When it comes to the public networks, this is a similar type of use case, quality inspection. This is actually an offering already provided for several customers, whereby TCS system integration is leveraging Verizon public network, as well as AWS Wavelength to provide ultra-low latency quality inspection at the edge. And Terence, I don't know how much time I have, if I can move to other use cases, or I need to stop here.
You're on mute, Terence.
Yeah, sure. Can you finish in 1 minute?
Okay, good. I had a video here for you, but I'm going to skip, and I'm going to show you a use case from the region, from Asia. And this is about a manufacturing company called Makino. And Makino is a Japanese milling machine manufacturer, which is actually leveraging a large fleet of robots, AGV, to be able to transport important heavy tools across their factory floor. And in the past, they have actually an autonomous robots management system, and traditionally, they are communicating with these robots leveraging Wi-Fi network. However, they notice very poor quality and frequent interruptions. As a result, they looked to into 5G network, and here they collaborated with KDDI and AWS and more specifically AWS wavelength service to connect all this fleet of robots through the 5G network. They also did a business case between private 5G and public 5G, and they reached the conclusion public 5G meets their criteria. And this is a very interesting case because it on one hand, it can allow the robots to actually reach in certain area of the factory premise where they couldn't reach before, and they also can process high volume updates. And with this, thank you very much. I invite you to go to AWS website. We have lots of use cases in the manufacturing, but not only in manufacturing, in media and healthcare space.
Thank you very much, Maria. I think it's very interesting to see the wavelength features right now can integrate with the both public and private network, which achieve quite good performance to support this kind of use cases. I think it's very encouraging. So yes, if you want to connect to Maria, please connect her in the LinkedIn profile I share in the chat box. And there are some questions to you, Maria, in the Q&As. So now let me move to the next. So we are going to share some GSMA update by Joe and my colleague Chris in the next two sessions. Joe, over to you.
Fantastic. Thanks. And I will just briefly, do you want me to share, Terence?
No, I already shared. Can you see the screen?
It's not moved along. Yeah, if we just go,
yes.
no problem at all. I'm going to help us try and catch up a little bit of time. If we just go on to the next one.
This one, right? Publication.
Perfect. Fantastic. Yeah, thank you. I actually just quickly to say, I think all three presentations that we've had so far are hugely insightful, and it's really been great to hear all of that insight. I just wanted to briefly mention on the GSMA Digital Industries, one of the things that we get involved in is collaborating to deliver publications, as well as doing our events at MWC, our webinars, etc. We've produced 2 papers this year. The first is around deploying Industry 4.0 in a brownfield site, so a legacy existing environment. And then the second one that's possibly more relevant to this particular discussion is the one on private 5G industrial networks. And if we can just go to the next slide, please, very briefly, Terence. I think on the last presentation, talking about Makino and them deciding to go with a public network, I think, and we've also had some conversations around the business models. This paper that we produced in June was led by Verizon, and we had input in it from Airbus, Capgemini, Telefonica, SI, Geo Reliance, and also some contribution from non-GSMA member Teradata. We've looked at some of the requirements around private 5G, and then also some of the options around deployment models, business models, some use cases, and some legacy considerations. For those members of the audience that are starting to think, right, you know, how do I go about deploying or getting access to a private network? This paper will hopefully give a nice background of overview for that. So the QR code will take you to that paper. And really, that's all I wanted to say, Terence. Just wanted to make everybody aware that this paper is available, and it's had some great feedback. So if that's of interest, do take a look, and hopefully you'll find it useful too. I'll stop there though, Terence, because I'm really keen to get onto our other speakers. So thanks for giving me the chance.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, before we move to the panel, I also get my colleague Chris, who are going to talk about some update about the eSIM, which is also very important for 5G IoT.
Yep. So for 5G IoT, it has been like a fascinating opportunity for the whole industry, and I mean insightful discussion from the presenter. So if we just jump into the next slide, so talking about eSIM, so why is eSIM important for private network? It's because like you really need a place to store your credentials to get access to the private network to start to the first place. And SIM card is normally tailored for like a large scale deployment, but for small scale, eSIM become a more viable options. And speaking of eSIM, we have 3 different specifications for 3 different use cases, but I mean, you can always choose your right one for your use case. Next slide, please. So, I mean, eSIM has been like going into market for the last 5 years for like very actively, in particular for Apple launching their eSIM only smartphones and also Motorola, and it's basically everywhere, and also in IoT devices. So that's a very, very important opportunity for everyone, so that you can take advantage of the availability of this new device to make your deployment life easier, which goes to the key, next slide on the key benefits. So when you think about private network deployment, you were talking about thousands of devices, but when in a traditional SIM setup, we're talking about hundreds of thousands or millions. So what are the real benefits of like doing eSIM in a private network setup? We are looking at like easier deployment. You don't need to insert the SIM multiple times. Everything can be done over the online or via QR code. We have eSIM discovery, which is a central repository to facilitate the eSIM download. And with IoT, we also have the new eSIM IoT remote manager that helps to orchestrate things. And also the next one being reduced inventory. You don't need to pre-order SIM anymore. You can get SIM vendors, eSIM supporting providers to give you eSIM in hundreds or in tens each time. And also for dual-use devices, Terence, can you go back to...
Sorry. A little bit slower, sorry.
Yeah. And then for easy to switch. So many times there are dual-use devices, or there are places that having some patchy connection that you want to be able to use public network as a failover. Then you have the opportunity to do that with eSIM. Followed by improved security, which is very important. When you think about eSIM, security is one of the frequent sorted results because eSIM is not easily removable, which remove the possible attack angles, and improve the reliability, because most of the time this device is placed in high dust, high humidity environment, and having one less removable parts helps to make sure the device, the machinery can focus in their key job rather than making sure the eSIM is protected. So that's a high level sharing for me today. And then we actually just published a eSIM starter guide for everyone. So I will put the link in the chat. So if you have any other questions, feel free to drop me an email. More than happy to guide you along.
Thanks, Chris. Yes, if you have anything, you can raise in the Q&A box to Chris, and he will also put the link mentioned in the chat box. So now, Joe, pass to you. Please introduce the PCS panelists with you. Thank you. Chris, can you stop sharing too?
Yep.
Thank you.
Great stuff. Thanks, everybody. Thanks very much. Great to hear that as well, Chris. Okay, so let's use the last sort of 25 minutes or so of the session to go to a panel. So far today, we've covered some of the key drivers of private networks in the manufacturing sector, but then also some of the macroeconomic challenges that are shaping that and some of the barriers. But then we've seen some of the great use cases that are coming along with metaverse, and we've briefly touched on how 5G Advanced is going to support that. And then we've heard some some really fantastic insight as well from AWS there on the deployment of IoT and how that's all starting to shape the industrial sector. So for this panel, I'm still seeing the slide actually, but I'm hoping that I'm going to have my panel members pop up on the screen in just a second, and we can see their faces. So for this panel, what we are looking to do is take advantage of our international gathering today. Aha, I can see some faces here. I can see Hakeem and David. That's good. Because we're going to ask our guest speakers to focus on their experience of private 5G networks from a regional perspective. So we've got some really fantastic experience on this panel. So I'm going to begin by asking each member of the panel to introduce themselves. As you can see, there are, please do put questions in the Q&A. We will try to answer live if we get a chance, but we are a little bit tight for time. So if not, we will catch up with them in a written format afterwards. Okay, so I think we're just waiting for Javier to come on the screen. Hey, there you are. Great stuff, Javier. Fantastic. So we have Hakeem, David, Malini, and Javier. Javier is kindly stepped into the shoes of Alfredo, our advertised speaker from Telefonica, who was not able to join, unfortunately, at the last minute. But I know we're in safe hands with you, Javier. So let's start. I'm going to go clockwise again as I can see people. So Hakeem, would you like to start with a brief 1-minute intro on who you are and why you're here?
Yeah, thanks. Can you hear me?
Well, yes, we can. Yeah.
I'm Hakeem. I'm a solution architect and acting also expert in telecommunication for Airbus in the digital aviation space. So I'm heading all the private 5G and private networks deployment across the globe today for Airbus. I also have ties with the Airbus Connectivity Strategy Board and so forth. So that's me, very briefly.
Fantastic. Thanks and welcome, Hakeem. Thanks for joining us. And David, please, over to you.
Hi, it's David Smith here. I'm the ecosystem lead for Huawei SPO Lab in Dublin in Ireland. And we're working particularly with the carriers across all industries and helping them develop their go-to-market use cases and then develop their partnerships and alliances that back that up.
Brilliant. Thank you, David. Malini, you're next on my screen. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. I'm Malini. I am attached to the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission. We are the regulators in Malaysia. So I oversee a portfolio that looks into driving demand for 5G enterprise services, working with both the public and the private sector. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Malini, and great to have you here. And Javier.
Thank you, Joe. Good morning, everybody. I'm Javier Martinez, and I lead the Industry 4.0 business in Telefónica Tech. This Industry 4.0 business has mainly to do with mobile private networks and industrial solutions for the digital transformation of the manufacturing and other sectors.
Brilliant. Welcome. Well, as I say, an absolute great range of speakers with some fantastic insights. So keen to get started with this. So Hakeem, let's start with you. So Airbus have been engaged in the 5G story for quite some time now. And I understand you have a footprint now in multiple countries. So France, Germany, Spain, UK, China. Can you give a brief overview into your sort of private 5G journey so far and the differences that you've seen between countries, and does that make a difference in your sort of planning and deployment decisions?
Thanks for the question. Well, we actually started quite some time back, 6 years ago, with a small proof of concept around flight test airplanes, which produce a lot of data, and we partnered with Ericsson back then to deploy a network specifically for that use case, to have a sort of a remote control of the test and validation platform inside the airplane, and also used for offloading huge amounts of data. So we took also this opportunity to, once we saw that the proof of concept was successful for one use case, to start trialing a lot of other use cases. And we had this kind of KPI-based proof of value capture process, trialing a lot of use case, benchmarking, and looking at the difference between what we have today and what can be achieved with this kind of technology. Of course, it was only 4G back then, but it already provided successful results, right? So today we are in production, really, in a lot of use cases. We have developed the Airbus manufacturing sector, and today we have put in place industrial automation for our shop floors with AGVs of different kinds that are, for example, handling heavy parts, replacing complex crane controls. This is combined with worker augmentation, with connected 5G smart tools. We also are developing today, real-time voice assistants, for example, synchronized with the operator's action and the tools that they use in a precise geographical place, if you like, for safety reasons. So the operators receive safety messages and instructions to better assemble the parts in the shop floor. We also do logistic automation, so this is fairly successful. We have this greenfield approach. Any new program that builds new planes will use 5G today. So we connect as many devices as possible, to be fair with you. We have integrated smart glasses or XR generally for process augmentation, providing virtual training, for example, for drilling, fastening, and industrial stuff. Really, we use it for quality inspections. So for us, private 5G provides this appropriate technical requirements in terms of speed, low latency, and so forth, and we can quickly adapt it to the use case and to the need. Of course, just to be quick and leave some floor to other people here, but all of this has been built with a recipe, with a design pattern architecture for multi-site, and this is fairly complex. We built the business model, we built support contracts, service catalog with our SIs, have challenges, a lot of challenges that we are overcoming, and we're still trying to overcome with regards to cybersecurity, how to build a trusted network as a new leg in your enterprise, to secure the access, the transport, through different things, through audits, through penetration tests, and build this cyber guidance adapted to 5G as well, that did not exist in the IT guidelines. We have challenges with our IT infrastructure. For example, providing one single SI covering all the multinational aspects of Airbus is very challenging today. To have local support, but also to deal with spectrum, which is a challenge, right? In different. So you have a challenge to build one single pattern, one single architecture that adapts to all these different countries. And this is just a few things, right? I have many others to say here.
Yeah, just 5 minutes is not quite enough, I don't think, Hakeem.
Skip some, but finish on one thing, is that today we also look at the wider picture of private networks in the global enterprise telecom ecosystem through roaming, integration with MVNOs and MNOs, eSIM services, neutral hosting, combining public and private, links to corporate telephony contracts, and so forth. So many topics. So, guys.
Fantastic. Thanks, Hakeem. And actually probably worth mentioning as well that you were one of the key contributors into the paper that I talked about earlier as well. So I know there are lots of your thoughts in there as well. So another plug for why people might want to take a look at that. Thank you. And apologies, we only have a short time for this panel today. So let me jump along to David. So David, within your role, you have ecosystem in the title, head of ecosystems. And so what is your perspective on the role of partnerships? And I think Hakeem's kind of led towards this a little bit as well. When we're talking about building kind of that robust and dedicated network infrastructure for the industrial sector. So what's your take on that?
Sure. I think for us, the role of partners is absolutely critical, because no one company can really provide an ecosystem with everything it needs. It just can't happen. So you have to work with other people, and therefore you really have to have partnerships. So for any company doing any type of business, you'll just be involved in various types of partnerships, alliances all the way through. So they're crucial for building that robust, dedicated network infrastructure that then we can offer to the likes of Airbus or to whoever else that we're working with as well. So and we do this across the world. So we work with our local account teams, figure out what their operators are doing, what they need, what kind of support we can get them, and going out then and looking for partners that are going to fit those needs. And we're working across all the industries: manufacturing, oil, gas, mining, health, and so on. So it's across many industries. And the role, I would say one thing, first of all, the role of alliances is really important. We're a key member, I'd say, of a lot of local alliances here, particularly the ones that the GSMA is involved in, the likes of the Maxis 5G Alliance, the 5G AI Innovation Hub in Malaysia, the Thailand 5G Alliance, the Thailand 5G Ecosystem Center, Telemedicine Association, Indonesia Now.id 5G Portal, and the Greater Bay Area 5G Alliance. So we are very active with alliances. And I think actually we're a member between the alliances and the standards body of about 360 different standards alliances and organizations or open source communities as well. And really the role of alliances, just before partnerships, the alliances are really important because they allow suppliers and service providers to talk together. So we get direct feedback from the vertical industry partners as to what they need going forward. It helps solve a lot of the issues in those talking shops as well. Listen to stakeholders, design from the ground up to what they actually need. And because most alliances anyway, represent one vertical industry, they can really stay focused on those topics there. And they also, crucially, the alliances give a direct voice to feed into the standards bodies, and that's really important as well. And it's those standards that are laying the foundation for the shared success of industries. And then if you look at then in terms of the role of partnerships, I'd have to say often coming out of the alliances, which is a great double benefit for us as well. It is those alliances, why do people form alliances? And really, we usually mutual interest in growing revenue, growing brand awareness, access to some sort of data, access to some sort of skills that you don't have. And if you're looking then what makes a successful partnership, it's one where, both parties are bringing something to the table, where you're able to really co-create something together, where you get some sort of new geographic or technical reach that you don't have. And then if you're looking at it in terms of what you want in a partner, you got to, what are their ability to partner? What are their skills, their time, their money, their reach? What are they bringing? What are we both bringing? Are we both going to get something out of it? Because there's no use getting involved unless both parties are really going to win.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you look particularly on the differences in alliances or in partnerships globally, there are a lot of differences there, and you do have to be aware of those differences as you're getting into those partnerships globally. First of all, what is their ability, desire? What's their capability to go overseas? What are the differences in standards and the standards regulation bodies? Can we meet them? Can we meet them together? What are the language differences, in terms of, languages for sales, pre-sales, service support? Are you going to be able to cope and manage all of that, or are we going to be able to do it together? Are we providing something to help them do that? And then what's the distance from head office in terms of if you need support from head office, what's that going to be? And you got to always be aware of the cultural differences, avoid using idioms, confusing language, because, it doesn't translate. And the Irish are very bad for this because we use an awful lot of slang words and idioms, and you have to be really careful about that. How are you going to deal with conflict and disagreement? It's going to happen, but how are you going to plan for it in the beginning? How are you going to look at the work ethic and the work hours and the work day to make sure, what you're expecting other people to do, they can do as well? What's the role of gift giving? Some places it's absolutely essential you do it, and other places it could lead to problems if you're gift giving. So you got to look at all those things, and just really good communication. Building trust, rapport, regular communications. How do you connect? How do you connect socially if you get a chance? Often over food. Every culture, I think, shares that need. All right.
Yeah.
And then one last plug for Huawei, which is the Open Lab. So we're running an Open Lab in here in Thailand, and we run a number of Open Labs globally, and it's helping get partners certified onto the Huawei ecosystem, the Huawei Cloud 5G platforms, and we're working with lots of local partners to get those Open Labs set up. And then by getting them pre-certified, we know they're going to work. They're going to work with our systems. And then after a successful launch in one country, we want to help them bring them to other countries, so bringing them to other Open Labs as well. So hopefully that's
fantastic.
A bit of a
yeah, no, thank you, David. That was great. And actually, yes, it's very insightful. I mean, we talk a lot about partnerships and their criticality from a even from an alliance perspective, where we're just understanding need through to finding a bespoke solution for a particular organization, and actually that is potentially a new way of working for a lot of organizations. So all of those new skills and requirements and preparation that's required is really valuable insight. So yeah, thank you so much for that. Javier, I'm going to come across to you now to kind of build a little bit more on the ecosystem part of that. So let's take this back to the mobile network operator. Obviously you're representing Telefonica, so what is the role of the operator within the organization? And also, can you tell me a little bit about some of your experiences? I know that as well as a footprint in Europe, you have also been working in LATAM as well, which would be interesting to hear from.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, the role of the operator, as the previous speaker has said, in the mobile network space, personalization is key. And also, as Hakeem said, dealing with the spectrum, the roaming, and other aspect is key. So what we have done is to combine the both worlds, the telco and the personalization and the integration, creating a specific business unit that is Telefonica Tech to deal with this space of private network business. And here our strategic vision is to become a major IT and OT integrator in the manufacturing, mining, agriculture, and logistics sectors. So here, doing in this way, our responsibility incorporating specialized products and services across the value chain of the digital transformation of these industries, like different network architecture for private network, from totally on-premise to different hybrid configuration, but also we are able to integrate with specific computer vision, mobile robotic, or even connected frontline solutions. No? So at the end of the day, all these elements are optimized through our edge and cloud and cybersecurity capabilities. So finally, our role is to combine this product service with the commercial reach of the telecommunication operation across different geographies, because we are able to deploy a private network globally in the world. We are necessary to complement this effort with the resources from the telco, the roaming, the public backup, the frequencies, and so on. So this is the role of the operator, and in our case, the role of Telefónica Tech as a private network integrator. The second part of your question has to do with the difference between geographies, in this idea of the ecosystem. Let me first talk about mining sectors. Mining sector globally is probably one of the most mature in mobile private deployments. Probably the biggest mobile network deployments are in the mining sector, mainly in Canada, in Australia, and in South America. And so we are very active in Latin America mining sector. And here in this vertical, the business case and return on investment is clear and revolves around new mines and also expanding in the agri-food, the agricultural operation. So the key driver here is the need for seamless coverage for critical trucks, machinery, drills, and other essential equipment in these mining and agricultural operation. So basically what we deploy is a private network that are able to provide coverage for a remote control or semi-autonomous truck, ensuring the business continuity in the minery by minimizing disruption, optimizing emission, and also improving the condition of the work. That is key for the safety, for the personal safety. So basically, we have deploying a number of private networks in various mines and agricultural operations, combining fully private deployments with public coverage for remote location when needed. So this combining this idea of the best of two worlds. So this strategic approach allow us to ensure the best solution from the telco and from the integration perspective. And finally, the difference between LATAM and Europe, to put it in a nutshell, Latin America has focused on consolidated 4G LTE ecosystems for seamless coverage mainly, and Europe is driving cutting-edge 5G ecosystem that leverages in low latency, high device density, and broadband. So in South America, we are developing these verticals, mining and agriculture, and we leverage and try to accelerate the ecosystem and partner with key equipment suppliers like Komatsu, Caterpillar, or John Deere. And in Europe, the key element is to build an integrated value network to create new value around private EG. We are working closely with major car manufacturers to develop innovative factory designs. We are also working with the port authorities and various stakeholders in the port to design and implement new use cases around typically computer vision and more autonomous cranes. And similarly, we are focusing on creating blueprints and use cases for universities, hospitals, and other institutions that try to encompass the public and private funded for setting up laboratories to bring together different stakeholders and new applications in this sector. So, summary, we have created an integrator, Telefónica Tech, for this business. Second, in LATAM, the key driver is the mining and agriculture sectors. And in Europe, we are fostering the innovation ecosystem, deploying different innovation centers and laboratories across Germany, Spain, UK, and other countries.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Javier. That's really interesting, and particularly interesting to see how at a macro level in countries the drivers are different. In LATAM, it's about coverage. In Europe, it's about developing this value from the 5G perspective as well. So thank you so much for that. And that leads me nicely to Malini. Now, I know that we are almost right up against the hour, but Malini, don't worry, I'm not going to give you only 30 seconds. Hopefully everybody who's joining us will be with us for these for the last few minutes, because I'm really keen to hear from your perspective today. So you're from the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission, and you've had a really active role in the deployment and the launch launch of 5G within Malaysia. And so what I'd really like to hear from you has been about your experience of creating and enabling that environment for digital transformation using private networks. So what has been your experience, and do you have any advice for any policymakers that we might have that are also keen to make this 5G enabled or private network at least enabled environment?
Thanks, Jo. So maybe just to start off, as a regulator, right, our responsibility in advancing 5G deployment basically would be anchored on our legislative acts, that we've enforced. We've got a couple of acts that we have, under us, and those acts provide us with the authority not only to regulate, but also to look into the development of the industry overall. So Malaysia took a bit of a different approach in terms of how we deployed 5G. In 2021, the government decided that we are establishing an entity, for a single wholesale network deployment, right? So when that decision was made, as the regulator, special license conditions were imposed on this entity, as a form of strategic regulatory development, right? And the rationale for the special license conditions were to mitigate potential issues that may arise for the single wholesale network, and also to ensure, that this entity provides equitable and affordable access, maintain efficient spectrum use, and as well as accelerate the 5G deployment. So that was 2021. Today, October 2023, we as a country, we have actually achieved a 5G coverage in populated areas of about 73%, which is about 7% away from our target of 80%, to be achieved by this entity. So along the way, next step would we are looking into introducing a dual network provider system. The moment we achieve a co-power of about 80%, okay, and looking at end year or perhaps by January, that to be introduced. So the idea of a dual network that the country is actually taking through is basically to establish a competitive market landscape, looking into the dynamic needs of the market, the enterprise market, looking into reducing barrier to entry, looking into enabling, various kinds of product offering or bundle offering by the MNOs, right? A more vibrant pricing structure, looking into better service level agreements for enterprises, so this, and also looking into tailored solutioning, right? That would actually cater towards the needs of the enterprise, right? So that is where the dual network approach would take in, a more vibrant and competitive environment, right? So, well, happy to inform that, we have a first 5G lighthouse enterprise in the form of our oil and gas player, which is Petronas Malaysia, and that was a private network that was deployed late last year. It's pretty interesting because as of today, Petronas itself is looking into deploy and scaling out to 3 or 4 more sites this year, and we've got more sites coming up next year, and these are all private network, so if we were to look into what were the success factors that enable this, number one was the early engagement, that was taken up with the industry, and especially Petronas. We formed a task force in 2019, working with both the public and the private sector. We looked into 4 core areas. One of it was on business case, right? So with that early engagement and conversations with these enterprises, we also provided very conducive trialing or demonstration environment, guiding them on, why 5G is actually required, or, why do you actually need 5G for this? So that kind of conversation was essential because number one, I think we have to also educate and make aware that 5G is not that silver bullet to solve everything, right? It's about enabling, for digital transformation to happen. It is about a mesh technology that can be combined and put in play, and not everything is about 5G, so that basic awareness needed to be there. We also had to have a lot of engagement in terms of how spectrum would be utilized, how spectrum is actually viewed, and it is a national resource, it is scarce. There is a limitation towards it, but there are ways in which we can actually leverage on it, whether it's a private network, could be a network slice, or even use cases that actually leverage on the public network itself, So the question of why do you need this amount of spectrum for this use case, So that kind of thinking, that kind of rationalizing with the enterprise needed to be, put in place, right? I would think that perhaps the third point would be basically engaging and making that awareness a bit more profound, guiding them through the process, making them understand about the integration of IT, NT and OT, and working with the MNOs as well, to look into the development of the bigger ecosystem that would actually enable this kind of partnership, this kind of collaboration, this kind of transformation for the enterprises. Yep.
Fantastic. Thanks. And actually, Melanie, that kind of links us right back to when you're talking about the awareness from the customer's perspective, awareness of what needs to be provided. I think that takes us nicely to our very first presentation that we heard from Robert from WM5G, who was talking about some of those barriers. So I think we've gone full circle there, and we're right up again, a little bit over time. So I think we need to stop the panel right now, and unfortunately there's no time for questions. However, I want to thank everybody for joining us. I think it's been a really good opportunity to take just a high level view of private 5G in the manufacturing sector, and to hear from some really great speakers. So thanks so much to all the panelists for joining us. Terence, you're back, and I guess we're going to be also extending our thanks to all of the other speakers that have joined the session today. Oh, and thank you as well. Terence has just reminded me, next month on the 12th of December, GSMA Digital Industries will be holding its next forum meeting. As I've mentioned, we have one of these every quarter. We will have speakers from Omdia, looking at trends to watch for 24 in private networks. So if this is a topic, do join us for that. We'll also be joined by Unmanned Life, Telefonica Tech, and Verizon, and we'll be kicking off some work around terminals if you're interested in that, industrial devices. So thanks for helping me promote that, Terence. If you click the QR code, you can go to the registration for that session. So wonderful. Back over to you, Terence.
Thank you very much for all the speakers who shares a lot of insights and a lot of update about the 5G development, especially the deep dive into the manufacturing sector. I mean, thanks again. For my side, I would also like to promote about the next APAC 5G industry community activity, which is on next Monday, which have a hybrid conference. We will put together holomedicine and 5G connectivity in healthcare as a focus. 2 days conference in Singapore. The lucky thing is we also have online conference. So if you can't visit physically, you are welcome to join online. Please go to GSMA website to find out the registration, or you can email me for detail twong@gsma.com. And then we will have a physical event in Jakarta Digital Nation Summit. If you are in Jakarta or in Indonesia, you are welcome to join. And then finally, of course, we start to plan next year activity. I will work closely with Joe about the Barcelona activity. Hopefully, we can bring our APAC community physically to global, to Europe, and then have more networking and collaboration, exploration about opportunity of 5G. So that's it. I think thank you again very much. I see still a lot of people joining us right now at this time. Still, thank you very much for your patience for the last more than 1 hour, 100 minutes. Thank you very much. See you soon in somewhere in APAC or Europe. Thank you very much. Bye.